Hi everyone, welcome back to SmugMug Live. Thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. This is episode 31. It's been a busy few months since we started this channel, so thank you for joining us. I am really excited to have today's conversation. We've got the wonderful Matthew Jordan Smith joining us in a few moments, so really excited to have a great conversation with Matthew. But before we get to Matthew, as always, we would love it if you would do us the great honour of hitting the subscribe button here on the channel. Hit that little bell notification. That way you will be told about every episode we release here at SmugMug Live over the coming weeks. This is the last stream of this week, but next week we have a couple of great episodes lined up. On Tuesday next week, we have the wonderful Emily Teague joining us all the way from New York. She's a wonderful fashion editorial photographer who does quite a bit of humanitarian work as well. She's joining us on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, I'm going to be joined by Steve Brazil, who is a live music photographer, and he's going to be telling us about the fun and games you can have while photographing live music concerts. So that's going to be a great little presentation next Thursday from Steve. Thank you to those of you who are already in the chat window. Give us a shout out wherever you are in the world. It's always so much fun to see where people are joining us from today. So say hello in the chat, tell us where you're coming from, but also if you have questions for Matthew today, post them in the chat window and I'll be sure to answer them. I'll be sure to ask him the questions and get him to answer them. He's told me there's nothing you can't ask him. He knows everything. So let's see if we can confuse him. But for now, I want to introduce a dear friend of SmugMug. We have known Matthew for many years. We've been delighted to have him as a customer. We've been delighted to work at workshops and sponsor workshops with him. He is a celebrity photographer, fashion, beauty. He does a lot of personal projects, and we're going to get into all that today with the incredible Matthew Jordan Smith, who joins us all the way from Tokyo. Matthew, hi, how are you?
How you doing? How's it going there?
It's going great. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's been
and
a
it's
while, but I've been in Edinburgh years ago, and
yeah.
one day I'll go back there again.
Yeah, well, the reason we started this channel is obviously because we're all kind of stuck at home a little bit over the last few months. And I think the last time we saw each other was just before all this craziness started. We were in Vegas at WPPI. And that's typically where we see each other these days, is at conferences and trade shows. But we won't be doing that for a little while. So we thought we'd get you on here to have a little chat with me today. So it's evening for you because you're joining us all the way from Tokyo. So what is it, 11 p.m. there or something?
That's correct. 11 p.m. right now.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing this late your day. It's a little bit early for us, especially for those of you joining us from the West Coast of the US. It's a little bit earlier than we normally do it, but we're trying to juggle all the different time zones today. So thank you to those that are here for Matthew. Matthew, I mentioned a little description of the work you do. You've got many strings to your bow. There's many things you do, but certainly you're probably best known for your celebrity work.
Yes.
You know, I know you're going to show us some images later, but you know, there's quite a list there. There's Oprah, there's Samuel L. Jackson, there's Queen Latifah, there's Aretha Franklin. Oh my goodness, it's a never-ending list. How did you get started in the world of celebrity photography?
It kind of found me. I started my career doing beauty, fashion beauty,
Mm-hmm.
but more predominantly working in the beauty world and doing a lot of magazine work at the time. And then that editorial led to editors finding my work, loving it, and wanting me to shoot celebrities the same way I shot beauty.
Mm.
And that's been my entire career. So everything I do basically revolves around beauty, that whole world. And then celebrity got pulled into that world, and it's led to this career I've had now.
Yeah, and you've been doing it a couple of years now, right?
Just a few years now, going on, my third decade shooting, and I still love it.
Wow. And I mentioned you're in Tokyo, but typically you're all over the world photographing. But Tokyo's home, is that correct?
Tokyo's home, but normally, well, before March anyway, I was in the States like every month at the least every other month. But
Yeah.
like last year, I came to the States like 11 times. I was in Europe once last year, and that's typically my lifestyle up
Yeah.
until, of course, the world changed.
The world definitely changed this year. It's been a roller coaster over a year. So we're probably not going to be back in the US, you and I, for a while. But
True,
you
true.
you haven't been sitting around. You've been busy with lots of little projects that we can talk about. You also have your own podcast,
Yes,
which
yes, I
which you
do.
do, and I love listening to that. It's a really really informative podcast. I wonder if we could talk about an episode though that you had recently, a very very powerful episode where you talk about one of the reasons you're in Tokyo. Now, you and I have had conversations about the fact you love Tokyo and why you're there, but when I was listening to that podcast, it was quite a conversation. I wasn't expecting to hear what I said. Do you want to repeat here why one of the reasons you live in Tokyo?
Yes, and I guess people really understand it now. But one of my main reasons for living here, of course, I love Japan in a big way. But I moved here because I felt there were opportunities here in Japan that I could not get in the States. It was safer also here than in the States. Being a black man living in America, there are times when you do fear for your life. Um, and sometimes people take that for granted, but that can change just by being stopped, for a
Mm,
traffic ticket. Um, and those things happen. So, I travel a lot. And when I've been in the States, things happen. And I'm like, you know what? Why not go somewhere else where you feel welcomed, where you can advance in your career, where you can live comfortably without stress? And Japan is that place.
yeah. It was a really powerful conversation because you were talking, you said, this episode's going to be about color, and you'd been talking a lot about color gels and color balancing and stuff, but it was an entirely different conversation about color, and as well as COVID obviously being a big conversational point at the moment. The whole Black Lives Matters movement is rippling, or sending waves across the world, and to hear that conversation and to hear that yourself had another reason that maybe many of us weren't aware of for being in Tokyo was a very powerful conversation. So thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's funny because being here in Japan, people don't really understand the thing about the racist issue in the States. Even today, I went to my doctor, and he was asking, "Oh, um, have you ever had anything happen in America, in terms of racism?" I'm like, "Yes," and he was shocked
Mm.
because people here are just finding out about stuff as well. But yeah, all the time. But you don't talk about it because it happens so much. And all my friends knew why I moved here. And some of them said, "Oh, maybe I should do the same thing." And now those same friends are wondering if they should also make moves out of the country and other places because my life has been pretty good since I've been here.
That's great. I'm glad you found somewhere you feel welcoming. And you mentioned, the racism in America, but this whole movement has woken us up. It's not just America. We here in
That's true.
Scotland, here throughout Europe. It's something that the impact that George Floyd specifically had in the US and the death of him. It woke up not just the US but the whole world. And
The entire world.
you and I had a conversation recently where I was saying that here, even in Scotland, we don't really think of the historic slave trade having an impact in Scotland, but there were slave masters from Scotland. There were merchants who owned, cotton fields and shipped people from the Caribbean around the world as
Yes.
slaves. So nowhere is immune to it. And I was telling you about street names being changed here in Scotland, which are names that I just thought of as a street name, Buchanan Street in Glasgow, and then you find out that Mr. Buchanan, who the street is named after, was a slave trader, and we're not taught that. We're not made aware of that in this country. So I'm glad we're
America as
becoming aware.
well.
Yeah,
Know a lot of the history that, if you grew up in America as a black person, there's history that that a lot of people didn't know.
yeah,
Like, a lot of people in America just found out about Juneteenth or
right.
Black Wall Street for the first time ever. But, we grew up knowing that stuff and hearing about it, but you didn't hear about it in history books. You weren't taught that. So
Yeah,
it's like now the whole world's kind of waking up to seeing that.
Yeah, well, I'm proud to say that both at SmugMug and Flickr, Juneteenth is celebrated and is an official holiday here at SmugMug and Flickr. So we're doing our utmost to make sure we don't gloss over or try and smudge that history. Make sure people are aware of these things. So
Thank you.
so we'll maybe get back to some of the work that you're doing with an exhibition around black photography, black art matters. So we'll come to that maybe in a little bit. But maybe
Sounds
we
good.
can jump to the celebrity stuff. It's it's what you're well known for, and it's always great to see celebrity photography. And I know you're going to share some images with us today, which I'm excited to see. So
Absolutely.
shall we try sharing your screen, and you can show us some of this portfolio I have of some of the amazing names out there. Yeah,
Perfect. I do want to say, like my podcast, which is called Master Your Lens
nasty. Yep.
Podcast, it is always about photography. But for that one episode, I had to talk about something else that I felt was more important at that moment. So that's why I did that one episode based on color.
Yeah.
But I love color in my photography as well, as you're about to see. So let me just share some of that right
Yeah, I mean, it was
now.
a whole. You'd gone several weeks talking about color in photography, but I think it would have been remiss of you not to have that conversation. It's you it was powerful, and it took probably a lot of people by surprise. But you have to be commended for speaking out and letting people know that full story. But yeah, okay, I'm going to share your screen now, and I'm
Beautiful.
sure everybody will recognize this first image that you have on screen. Who's that?
uh,
Is she a celebrity?
it's funny. So this is Oprah Winfrey,
Yep.
who's a huge celebrity in America for sure. But when I moved to Japan, I found out, and I was showing my work, people didn't recognize her, and I was shocked by that. But then you think about it, she's a big celebrity in America because of the talk show, but not
Yep.
so much because of movies. And for that reason, people in Japan don't really know her.
Right.
So when I show my work, I don't really show so much of Oprah, but I do show that in the States.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm sure throughout Europe, everybody knows who Oprah is as well, and in the US. How many times have you photographed her?
Oh, about 4 or 5 times in my career,
Hmm.
from like the '90s up until current day, which has been funny to see how her career has gone. When I first photographed her, there was no old magazine, um, and she wasn't as camera savvy as she is today. So it's funny just to see that transition of a person going from that place. So I've shot her for many covers. Never for old magazine, which is funny. I've never shot it
Right.
for old magazine, but I've shot it for other magazine covers throughout my career. That's been fun.
Have you seen? You said she wasn't as camera savvy. Have you seen her change in front of the camera? Does she need less direction now, or
Oh,
yeah?
yeah, much less. I mean, the first time I shot her, we worked all day on a photo shoot,
Hmm.
and then it turned to being like I'd only have 15 minutes for a photo shoot, but in 15 minutes she could get great images like that. So, number one, she has a great personality. Period. She
Sure.
has this aura in front of a camera, but at first for a still camera, it was different for her. Today, it's not. Today, she does a still camera and of course, being on camera very easily.
Yeah,
So,
makes
so
it
it's cool
easy
to see
to
that
work with.
transition.
Yeah, and this is Queen
This is
Latifah.
Queen Latifah,
Yeah.
who I've also shot for quite a while. Um, and it's great seeing her. She is just, a great energy, singer, actor, activist. She does it all as well. Amazing personality. So it's great always working with her. I've shot her for different ad campaigns, actually, probably more ad campaigns than anything else,
Right.
because now she does everything. And then Tyra, I've shot her my entire career, from the very beginning of her career and until recently. And we're good friends. We kind of grew up together in photography and in the business. So um, I could very easily show 500 pictures of that many times over the decades. But I love this kind of work
Yeah, the stuff you
because we.
is incredible, and you can see. I think you can tell how much of a relationship you have with that person just looking at your portfolio with Tyra. It looks so comfortable. She looks so comfortable that it's great that you've kind of had that career together, photographing for a long time.
Yeah, even done her show, even her, her top model show. I
Hmm.
did that, when it was live. I did the show like 6 times as a guest photographer or a guest judge, which is always kind of
Mm.
fun doing that stuff.
Did you enjoy
And it
that?
still airs somewhere. What's that?
Did you enjoy that?
I loved it. I
Yeah,
loved it actually. It's kind of fun. Yeah, for sure.
getting you
They
on the
still
other side
air
of the camera.
sometimes. For sure. And then I do a lot of advertising as well. It's usually in the beauty world, like L'Oreal, Olay, places like that. But I also do other types of ads as well because it just those kinds of things comes to you.
Yep.
Um, Here's for Farmers Insurance. Here's some of the Olay ads I've done. Those are always fun. I love doing these. Sometimes I put a celebrity in, like this one's Angela Bassett on the left, others on the model. It's normally a model, but every now and then they'll throw a celebrity in a beauty
Yep.
campaign or skincare campaign like this one. And then this is how my career started. And this is what I really enjoy doing a lot, and this is the beauty world. Um, I do a lot of this. As a matter of fact, my next job here in Japan is a beauty campaign as well.
Hmm.
And I can do this all day. This is how I started my career, and this is today what I still do quite a bit, and I absolutely love it.
And you're doing this? Are you doing this for the brand, the makeup brand, typically, or?
I
Yeah.
do it for both for editorial and for brands.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. How did you learn your craft? We never mentioned that at the beginning. Did you
Ah,
study
yes.
photography or?
I studied photography in art school, then went to New York and worked as a photo assistant.
Hmm.
That was my real training. So working for some great, great, great photographers, that was my training. People who were doing fashion, beauty. In school you learn what to do, you learn the rules, and then you get into the field and you learn what not to do, and you learn how to break the rules. And that was New York for me. So that was my beginning of my career was being in New York, working as a photo assistant and then that led to working on my own in New York and growing my career.
Yeah,
It's
it's
funny because even now living in Tokyo, Tokyo feels very much like New York City.
really.
It's exactly the same type of lifestyle.
Hmm.
You're in a big city, big buildings. You're walking around a lot. There's a train. It's a very transit city. They feel very much the same.
That's interesting. And we have I mean, New York really is a real centre of the fashion photography world. We've had quite a few
Oh
people
yeah.
join us here. Lara Jade has joined us on the show. As I
Oh
say,
yes.
get Emily Teague next week. They're all based in New York now. Great place to have like a studio in your apartment and kind of get into that world in New York. So it seems to be either
Definitely.
New York or LA for that kind of fashion world. So
That's true.
that's cool.
Um, but I think even more so New York because you're like the center, this the hub, and
Yeah,
and feels like fashion. I
yeah,
love that place. Always will. It's always home for me.
yeah,
And then I'm always shooting. And speaking of color, like I talked about, Mike, it's funny going back to that whole thing about the podcast.
yeah.
I I spent the entire January or actually December of last year planning out every month of my podcast for the year. And for
Hmm.
June, I plan to talk, or for March actually, I plan to talk about color for the entire month of March. But then, of course, things changed, and our world changed. So my entire episodes had to change as well, and um talk in a different way.
Yeah.
So here's what I love doing as well. Playing with color. Um, I do a lot of this today. This is mixing different types of lights, mixing strobe with constant light, and just playing around with gels.
Mm. Multiple
Love
gels
this
here
stuff.
in this case, right?
Yes, multiple gels in this case.
Yeah. What question for you? Do you typically always shoot in studio or do you do outdoor photography at all?
No, I do quite a bit on location as
Mm.
well. Being in Tokyo and being in New York, I'm always shooting every day. Um, I'm always having a camera in my hand, walking the streets, because you got to practice and keep your eyes sharp. And for me, that's going about and shooting life as it happens in the street. So,
Mm.
um, matter of fact, my career started off with me doing a lot of location work. So now I do quite a bit of both, studio and location. Even though I just showed you everything on location, I
Yeah.
just showed you in the studio just now, but
Yeah.
I do quite a bit of both and
Yeah.
love them both.
Cool. And how often are you shooting for personally? Like, are you shooting every day for work, or do you find time for yourself to
I
do
have
for
to
it?
shoot personally. I've always had a personal project. Even right now, I have an exhibit going on now in Switzerland. I've got another one opening up, a big one opening up in Kyoto in September. I'm always doing personal work. As a matter of fact, that's for me, it's really my passion. You're shooting stuff for a client, and that's all well and good. I mean, you start your career with the idea of getting work, but then you've got to shoot something for yourself to keep your passion there, to keep you alive, and to express yourself as an artist. I believe photographers are artists.
Absolutely.
And for me, that's my personal work. So I'm always doing something. My project in opens up in Kyoto, Japan. That's a big project I've been working on for a long time, and it's definitely the most fun I've ever had with a device in my hand.
So this is your exhibition that's called Fluid. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Which
That's
is
correct.
which is premiering in Kyoto. When does it open?
It opens September 1st.
September 1st, and we can't show anything today from it, unfortunately, because it is going to be an unveiling on September the 1st. But
Yes.
I've read your artist statement. It's a very different approach to imagery that we would perhaps expect from Matthew Jordan Smith, right?
It's a very, very different approach. As a matter of fact, it's not photography, and that's going to shock a lot of people. But
Like
it
what?
is. It's a new visual art form, as a matter of fact, and that's why I'm so excited about it. I'm debuting it for the first time in Kyoto, and very excited about it. I will be showing it in a different way. It is showing at a museum of photography. It's showing at the Kyoto Photography Museum, but it's a new visual art form, and that's very, very exciting. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm excited. I wish we could. Maybe we'll have you back once it's aired, and we can specifically talk about Fluid. That'd be fun, because I'm sure there's some interesting backstory to it, as well as incredible imagery from it. But I would encourage anybody that's viewing today just to keep an eye out in September. I'm sure you will start posting and releasing some imagery from
Absolutely.
that once it's open. The exhibition is open, but I can't wait to see what you've done with something that's not photography. It's still image based, but it's not
Oh, absolutely.
photography. Yeah,
Image based, but if you think about images, you think about the beginning of photography or the beginning of cinematography, you know, everything that supports those two art forms came after the invention of them. At the start of photography back in 1826, there was no device to see photography. There was no way to print photography early on. Those things came and developed, and this is kind of where we are with this. It's a new art form, and I'll show elements of it online. But to be honest, right now there is no infrastructure that supports it yet.
right. You have to see it in person probably
You
to
have to see it in person.
experience the whole thing.
Exactly.
So it's Matthew standing in a room sculpting clay, right?
Kind of like that. Kind of like that. So
Kind of. We're
it's fun
interested.
and very exciting. It's great to see people react to it. Um,
How
in the
many?
beginning,
Sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
showing I'm showing 20
That's
pieces.
what I was going to ask. How
Uh,
many images? How many assets are there, for want of a better word?
yeah, I can't say images because
Yeah.
and people will like ask questions based on photography, and I keep saying, "Oh, it's not photography," and then they don't understand until they see it. But people who have seen it, like, it's funny because when I've shown it to certain people um, in New York or LA or here, even here in Tokyo, and both all those places, people are like, "What is this?" And that's a great thing to get that from people who are in our industry who
Right.
know what a photograph is,
Seen every
what
medium
right,
available. Yeah.
every meat available, and ask, what is this? Even today, as I went to this place here in Tokyo, and the person was asking, questions about it, and said, "Oh, can you let me know when the exhibit is?" And collectors want to know when the exhibit is, and all that stuff. So I'm excited about that in a big, big way.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. I can't wait to find out a little bit more and maybe share share some of that if we possibly can. But we'll see how
Yeah,
that goes. Or maybe I'll just come to Tokyo. Oh no, I can't.
that. Well, maybe you can. You can't if you're from America right now, but maybe you can.
Maybe
And
I could. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the Scottish flight paths are to Tokyo at the moment. But I was telling you earlier, it's somewhere I've never been. I've never been to Japan. What a great way to do that. Come and see your exhibition.
it
But
would change your life. Come here. It's quite an amazing place.
yeah, we have made. We were talking earlier off camera about the series that we make called SmugMug Films, where we feature the people we love in this industry and some of our favorite photographers in the world. And we have a SmugMug film based around one of our dear friends, Dave Powell, who's a
Yes,
street photographer. And you were mentioning he lives in the same district as you in Tokyo.
yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
it's a small
Funny.
world. Yeah.
It's a very, very small world. I've never met him yet,
Mm.
but my wife used to work at Google, so I know of him for that because he works at
Yeah.
Google as well.
Yeah, YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was
Yeah.
also on the YouTube team, so I know of him because of that connection. And seeing his blog, it's all in my neighborhood. So I'm like, wait a minute, who's in my neighborhood here in Japan? So it's kind of
There
funny.
you go. I mean, that film opened me up to the opportunities, the visual opportunities in Tokyo. It just looked absolutely fascinating to as a place to walk around with a camera and take images.
It is the best.
Do you
It's
enjoy
the
that kind of street photography as well? Do you do some of
I
that? Yeah.
I do quite a bit of it.
Mm.
I have like talk about personal projects. I have another personal project I've worked on, shooting images in big cities.
Mm.
Um, that also includes motion. So I've been doing that for I guess since I moved here. Actually, for the last 4 years now, I've been doing that, and and love it. And it's funny how those images now have more of a meaning because the world has kind of slowed down. We're
Hmm.
not being close together. So all these pictures are based on large crowds
Yeah.
and move. And today you don't see that, of course, because you can't.
The kind of hustle bustle type
Yes,
of big
hustle,
cities.
bustle of the city.
Yeah.
And I love that about being in a big city.
What's the name of that famous street cross, the pedestrian crossing in Tokyo?
Yes, Shibuya.
Shibuya. Yeah, it's just like thousands of
Shibuya
people all trying
crossing.
to get the opposite direction from each other. It's quite incredible.
It's one of my favorite places to shoot. It never ever gets old. It's
Mm,
always exciting. Winter, summer, spring, fall, in the rain.
yeah.
I go and shoot all the time
People
because
with umbrellas and stuff crossing the street must be awesome.
absolutely,
Yeah.
it's incredible. Nighttime, daytime, you name it. You can go there every day and you never ever be bored.
Yeah, I got to experience it. You're making me get itchy feet here. It's well, I have itchy feet anyway. After 4 months at home, I'm typically traveling each month, so I'm desperate to travel. So maybe we'll try and find an excuse to come visit you if we can.
Yeah, wonderful.
We were talking about personal projects and exhibitions. So you've got the Fluid exhibition coming up, but you actually have an exhibition that's open at the moment in Zurich in Switzerland, right?
Yes, yes, that's showing right now actually.
Yeah, and it's quite a powerful project. It's Black Art Matters, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So this show came out fairly fast, where the curator contacted me in regard to showing work for this show. So I had to submit several images, and I picked out images from my archive to go into that exhibit. And it's up now, and it ends the end of August.
Hmm.
So I think like August 23rd it ends.
I've got a
But this is
little I've got a little trailer here actually. The exhibition has a little video kind of
oh, wicked.
trailer. I'm just going to play that and let the audience see the project. Then we'll maybe talk about some of the images you have in that exhibition. So I'll play that just now. It's a very short piece, but very very quick flashy edit. I think that maybe was a kind of piece for social. I'll maybe play it once more for the audience. Let's see. I can make that play again. There we go. Cool. So it's open 11th through the 28th, 23rd of August. So you're saying that's something that came about quite quickly?
Yes, yes, it did. Maybe I guess within a month of it opening, which is pretty fast for an exhibit.
Yeah.
was a group show. There people from all over the world, and um, they found me and asked for images. So I submitted images, which is different for an exhibit because normally you want to have your hands on every aspect of it, the printing and all that.
Yeah.
But this show we could not do that because of the speed in which it was put together. But it was fun to be a part of it, and I'm glad seeing it. And it's funny because of social. Here I'm in Tokyo.
Yeah.
The show's in Switzerland, and people have been posting images from the actual show online. So I've seen the show that way, and that's been fun seeing it, uh, through Instagram, basically for the first time,
Yeah.
seeing the show and seeing who else is in the show. So that was fun. I had a
Was
friend who's in LA who's in the show as well. And I didn't know it, but a friend, well, actually not a friend, somebody in Instagram videotaped my work and my friend's work and sent it to me. I'm like, oh, this is funny seeing that.
was this an exhibition that was specifically put together because of the Black Lives Matters
Yes,
movement? Yeah, that's why it
absolutely.
came so quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was of the moment and smart, I think, them to do that. And I'm not sure how much traffic it's getting, of course, right now, but it is being talked about. And people are going, so that's kind of wonderful to
Yeah,
see.
I think that's one of the incredible things about art is that it can be so reactive and can be so impactful so quickly. You know, no, I can't think of anything else that
Like,
moves as quickly in the ability to impact on people's interpretation or the visuals that they're seeing. There's nothing can do that quicker than art,
nothing,
right?
nothing. I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. It's funny to see how it can impact the world. Um, I always tell people, like, when I'm speaking or teaching, I talk about putting your life into your work. I think that's how as an artist, how you grow. I think pictures from 2020 should not look like pictures from 2019 or 2018. You got to put your life into your work, and that's what we all do in some way. It's got to have your fingerprint on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's have a look at some of these images at the moment because I think you've got one up on screen. So these next few images are from that
All the images that are actually
Blackout
in the show
Matters.
right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So this is Angela Davis, who I photographed years ago for an editorial, and I've never actually really shown the image outside of it being published for that magazine. But I loved this image, especially now because she was an activist in the '60s, and she's very relevant today as everybody talks about her today and her viewpoint and her voice and what she's done in terms of history in America. So I put this image in the show from my first time meeting her. And funny enough, I saw her actually like a year ago. Actually, no, 2 years ago now. 2 years ago next month, I saw her at this Afro Punk festival in New York City, and we talked for a second. But this is my first time meeting her years ago.
Yeah.
Then this is one image that I've always loved. It's always gotten a big reaction because of the quietness of it, but it's an image that I've always fallen in love with, and hopefully people there in Zurich are loving it as well.
And what was the story behind this image? Was that image the previous one? Was that for a project? Was this personal work?
This is personal work, and there is a story behind this work because I shot it just for me, and then I printed the image and put it up in my home.
Mm-hmm.
And my agent in New York came to visit me one day. We had a meeting at my apartment, and he walked in and said, "Whose work is that?" And I said, "Oh, it's mine." He said, "I've never seen this picture, Matthew. Can you send me this image?" So I sent the image to my agent. We put it in my book. We did a whole mailing around it, and it led to me getting this big beauty campaign based on this picture. But at the time, I felt like, oh, I should shoot stuff for me, just for me, and never show it. And that's what I was doing at that time. But my agent said, no, no, people really want to see your personal work as well. And that's when I began showing my personal work. So I think ever since that moment, I've always shot personal work for me, but you've got to show it. So
Yeah,
I'm excited about showing my work in September. That's really my real personal work.
yeah. I'm so glad you're sharing your personal work. I love when I have someone I know for a specific genre, and suddenly they unveil this whole other side to themselves, and it's in many ways I think it's more valuable than the commissioned work. In many ways, I think it really
Absolutely.
shows the
Absolutely.
real artist in you. You know, it's an incredible image. Was this someone you knew, or was this a
Yes,
family
this
member?
was. This was actually a model who I knew back in New York, and she was just stunning. And I just wanted to shoot her not as a model, but as I saw her.
Right.
And we just, she came to my apartment, and we shot there. And it was probably maybe like, maybe a 30-minute shoot. It was very, simple, but it resonated with people. And I've always loved this image for that moment.
Yeah, as you say, the stillness, the quiet, but the power is quite incredible. I love that one.
Yeah. It's funny because you saw her in her modeling work. It was very, very different, but this is how I always saw her.
Beautiful.
This is a LL Cool J. This was an assignment for a client, but I've always loved this picture also. This is at the end of a photo shoot. This is a cover shoot for a client, as a matter of fact. They didn't use this picture, but I've always loved this image of him because I thought it was powerful, quiet, uh, and hopefully timeless. But it's an image that I've always loved, and hopefully people will like this one as well.
When you're working with someone like LL Cool J or Aretha Franklin or whoever, how long do you get with them? You know, you're saying this is at the end of the shoot, so you've maybe shot the frames you wanted for the client, and then do you have some time for yourself, or is it in and out,
Sometimes, depending
all
on the
different?
client, I've shot LL a couple of times, so he was fine to stay longer and do some more work. Um, Aretha Franklin, I shot her the last 13 years of her life, so we were very, very close. To the point where she called me in the middle of the night to ask me, about the name of her CD or her, her album, like, what should I call it? So we were very, very close, and I
You're,
loved working with her in
you're
a big, big
confident.
way.
So when you have
But I
that
think it
kind of
happens with all.
yeah, when you have
All your
that kind of
clients.
relationship, you'll get probably longer with them. Where if it's someone you maybe don't know, it's a bit more in and out type.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I shot Angela Jolie for the first time last year, and it was a very short shoot. It was my first time meeting her, but it's always that way in the very beginning, and then you get to know somebody more and more and more, and things change.
Absolutely. Trust, right? It's,
Trust,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So this is, I think, the last image I sent to the show to exhibit because I felt it just had this energy that'd be great today, yesterday, and tomorrow. This is Sam Jackson, who I've shot many, many times as well, but this is the very first time I ever photographed him.
Right.
And it was a day when he was not comfortable being in front of the camera, and he let me know. It's like, oh, I don't like taking pictures. And then we got into this conversation about why. He told me, oh, like, doing a movie, I'm playing a character, I hit a mark, I know my lines. He says, but for still photography, it's different. It's like, I feel like I'm, naked standing in front of a camera. And, for still photography, you look directly into a camera. For a movie, you never look into the camera. So I said, oh, let's just play a game then. Let's just go through different movies that you've been in. I said, I know all your movies. Let me just start naming movies, and you give me a character from that movie. So we were doing that, and then it became like this game. And I said a movie, and I got this face, and it was funny.
That's your skill, and that's the skill of the photographers being able to make someone feel at ease or give you a look or get into character when they start the shoot by saying I don't want to be here and I'm not comfortable in front of the camera, then that's when you start doing your real job, which is
Absolutely.
being the counselor. I mean, I spent my career photographing brides for weddings, and almost the very first thing any client ever said when I met them was, "Oh, I hate getting my picture taken." It was almost the first words out their mouth, and that's when you start, okay, now I have to
That's
do
true.
my job and make them feel comfortable and make them look amazing. And you certainly have, incredible portfolio to show how well you do that.
Thank you, thank you. No, I love this stuff, and it's funny because very often people who are getting into photography or trying to get better at photography want to know about the tools and how you use the tools better and better and better. But when you start working, like really working as a photographer, it's about connection, how you make a connection with your client, how you pull things out, how you work through problems, how you make that person feel comfortable. That's really the biggest part of photography or
Yeah.
the visual medium period, be it, you're a movie director or a still photographer or any other form of the visual arts. It's about that connection you have with the client and how you pull something out, regardless of the device you're using.
Yeah, it's funny. We at SmugMug and Flickr have our own podcast now called the Photography Lounge, which I'd encourage people to go listen to. And on the last episode, which we released, I was in conversation with Jared Platt, a wonderful wedding
Yeah,
photographer. And as part of the conversation, we suddenly realised, talking about our photography careers, that photography is about problem solving and compromise. And
absolutely.
not just with the gear, but with the client and with the artist and with the subject matter. It's all problem solving and compromise at every turn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In a
And
big, big way.
yeah, and if you're a good problem solver, then you could
You have a
probably be a
great career.
great start at being a great photographer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
It's
was
always
that?
about the connection.
Sorry, what was that?
It's always about the connection between you and that
Absolutely.
client.
Yeah. Connection, trust. If you can make them feel great, if you can solve all the problems so that they never see them, and they just think everything is going great, then you'll get asked back to do more. And the number of times you've photographed with Oprah and Tyra and Samuel and Aretha just shows that you had built up that trust, and they knew there was going to be no problems as far as they were concerned. They never saw the problems, right?
That's true. If you make them feel good, if you make them feel, confident, if you make them feel beautiful, if you make them feel handsome, if you just make them have a great time in that experience of capturing the moment, they'll always call you back.
Yep.
Because
And
sometimes it's not comfortable for people being on a photo shoot. So they want people to make them feel great. So if you can do that, if you can make them look beautiful, feel handsome, feel secure, then of course they're going to have you over and over and over again.
yeah, and if you can make them feel like that, not only will they trust you, but they'll recommend you, and they'll you know do your marketing for you in many ways, right?
Trust me, trust me. If you do a great picture, people talk about that image. If you do a picture that's not so flattering, people also talk about that image.
Mm,
So that's how it is in this career. You do great work and people call you back. And if you do it well, you'll have a career,
yeah.
hopefully a long career.
Well, it's a great segue. Talking about images that people are talking about at the moment. Right now, there's one specific image that the whole industry seems to be talking about, and that's the current cover on the Vogue magazine of Simone
Yeah.
Biles. Now,
Yes.
I personally don't know anybody who's shot more covers than yourself, and I wonder if I could pick your brains about it, because for those that maybe aren't aware, Simone Biles is one of the greatest athletes that the world knows. It's certainly greatest Olympian to come out of America. She's a black female, and she was photographed by Annie
And
Leibovitz.
yes.
But there's a fair bit of controversy about the treatment of that image.
Yes.
You perhaps know more about how that process works of getting a cover. What are your thoughts? Are you willing to share what your thoughts are of that conversation that's been happening at the moment?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very well aware of the conversations that happened, between magazine editors, and the whole process of creating an image. Um, I love Annie's work. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I've always loved her work. As a matter of fact, I was offered a job to work for her as an assistant, early on in my career. And I must say I'm disappointed with that cover. I love her work, but I definitely feel like it was not given the respect, the treatment that other covers have been given.
Mm,
Um, Nothing happens by mistake in our industry.
right.
Nothing. There are many meetings about covers, especially about covers,
Yeah.
um, and especially in this moment. So knowing that, um, I'm disappointed in the magazine.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in the magazine because it's not the the best image of Simone.
No.
It's not treated the same way where other covers have been treated, and it just feels odd, especially in this moment.
It definitely feels like people were not reading the room, for want of a better word. The moment that we're in, and it's there's a tone deafness about it. Like someone somewhere should have.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the process of the cover, it's a big process. It's not, oh, this slipped by. It's many people at the magazine looking, talking, discussing, what's going to be on the cover.
Yeah.
Part of me feels it was done intentionally for the controversy to get
Mm.
more. I hate to say that, but I do feel that just because knowing everything that goes into making a cover, and all the conversations and that happen about that image,
That's probably the most disappointing part of it all.
it
Is if it was
it
intentional, then that's just unacceptable. There's a conversation about the treatment of the work, how it looked, and the quality of it. I don't think anybody I know personally has more expertise in lighting and photographing black skin than yourself, and it's quite clear that that image wasn't treating that skill level in any shape or form. And for you to say that nothing happens by accident, yeah, nothing at that level, especially in a magazine like Vogue, slips out.
absolutely not,
Yeah,
absolutely not. It's not. I just knowing what I know about the industry now. Annie has a contract to shoot all those covers. It's a multi-million-dollar contract to shoot all those covers for Vogue. Um, but if you look at all the covers, they do have this certain feel. Now, the image does look like an Annie image, but it's not treated the same way as other Annie images have been done before. Um, and for that, I put the blame on them for
yeah.
doing that.
So your understanding of the contract side of things with covers. So there's also a conversation saying that specific cover at this moment should have had a black photographer photograph that, but you suggesting it's maybe not quite as simple
It's
as
not quite that simple. No,
right.
no. Those that magazine in particular, with their contracts, they do have slated for one photographer to shoot all their contracts, and that's been a discussion for a long time. I've shot for Vogue, American Vogue before, but it's for the inside of the magazine, not for a cover.
Yeah,
Getting the cover is very prestigious, and
sure.
getting a Vogue cover, American Vogue cover, is even more prestigious. But those jobs are very hard to get, to get in the door and to get those contracts, not just getting a one-time job, but a multi-million-dollar contract like that is a very big deal. Um,
But what an opportunity to make a statement. Like it's
Absolutely.
hard. It's hard to change the contract. It's not how we typically do it. Those are the same kind of excuses we've been hearing for decades. What a statement
Absolutely.
that magazine could have made by, you know what? The moment we are in society, the moment right now requires us to do something different. So here's the statement we've made, and they just missed it. They blew it, in my opinion.
I agree. Instead of sticking with the status quo, this is the moment when you make a stand and
Yep.
hopefully make a stand that will reflect in a way that history will remember. And they didn't do that on this one.
Well, history's going to remember, but the wrong, the wrong side of history in many ways.
That's
But
true.
it's
That's
a it's controversial. There's obviously people that will argue both ways, but I think you and I are aware of what an opportunity was missed, and the kind of signal it sends out. So hopefully they have heard that and hopefully wake up to it. So thank you for sharing your insight into that kind of situation, because it's not the world most of us in the photography industry live in. You're not, shooting
That's true.
covers is a dream for many people, and it's great to have you on with such great experience. Do you know how many covers you've shot in your career? Do you
Oh,
keep track?
I should keep track. I don't.
You're too cool for that. I don't need to keep track.
No, I know I should keep track of how many films I shot. I should know that, but there was one point where I get a high. Of course, the magazine world has changed a lot in
Absolutely.
America. They're not the same as they used to be. It's not that way in Japan. The magazine world here in Japan is still like the magazine was where it was in the '90s in America. So that's kind of cool to see that here. But covers are a big deal, no matter what country you shoot them for. And I love doing them. And I'm just fortunate now to live in a country where magazines are still really big.
Yeah. Do you have one that stands out, a cover that you shot that
Wow.
stands out to you, like, wow, maybe it was your first
I
one,
do.
or?
I do. It's my first one. Is my first one of Oprah. I think those ones are the ones that stand out to me. When I shot Oprah's cover for the first time, I had shot three celebrities back to back for this one magazine, and there was three big celebrities at the time. It was Vanessa Williams, then it was Halle Berry, and then it was Oprah. So three big covers back to back. So those three for me will always be big. Um, Another big one for me was Zoom magazine, because at the time it was a big European magazine, and getting that cover was a big deal for me because in art school I loved that magazine, and then to have the cover of Zoom was a big deal for me.
Yeah, it's probably that magazine you love that one day I'd love to shoot a cover for
Yeah,
that. When it happens,
yeah.
it's kind of cool. I've had moments like that in my career, not shooting covers, but maybe shooting at a certain venue. Like when I shot weddings, there's this venue I hope one day I get to photograph there, and when it all comes together, it's pretty cool to have those moments in your career. I think you
Yeah.
have some other. Do you have other images lined up for us in this
I
presentation?
don't want in this presentation,
No.
but I can very easily show more for sure. I've
No, it's
got
okay. I was just wondering if there was anything else you had prepared, because I didn't want to ignore it if there was more lined up there. Let's move on to some of your personal work. In fact, actually, we have some. Let's look at there's some questions here. We've got a question come in from. There's a little bit of conversation going on about Simone Biles in the chat. So I'm not. I don't think we should
oh,
say any more
sure.
about it. I'll let people investigate it, especially if you're not familiar with the story and the controversy. Then I would like encourage you to go do your own research and obviously make your own opinions there. I think we've said what we need to say, but J JOJ says, are there cultural differences between shooting in the West and shooting in Japan? Are they more
Mm.
reserved in how you can shoot someone in Japan? It's an interesting
Things
conversation.
are very, very different for sure. I mean, Japan is for a long time was kind of like landlocked, and it's definitely a different culture here. Photography is different, how you communicate. And being here for 4 years, I've kind of learned that there's a lot of things that are very subtle about the culture, period. Um, even down to the food. Like, in America, things are very bold tastes, salty, sweet. And here, all of the food is very, very delicate, very subtle. So it changes your palate. But it's funny because that same energy flows through the entire culture. Everything is very subtle. And I've learned that um, even in photography, for with clients, people don't really say no here. It's because nobody wants to offend anybody,
Right.
which is part of the beauty of living in Japan. People are always very cognizant about the other person. Think about that.
Yeah.
People are very cognizant about the other person and not offending them.
What a crazy
So
idea.
it's true, right? So you'll
Yeah.
never hear no, even though they may mean no. So you learn through those
Yeah.
very subtle gestures, um, the way a tone is, but you'll never hear the word no abruptly,
Yeah.
because that'd be too rude. So You learn about those things by living here, and that took me a while to learn that. But now I know.
So working with the kind of contractual legal side of it when you're doing a shoot in Japan, that must be very different when there's these
Everything is
subtleties,
different. Yes, I think everything about living here is different, and that's what attracted me to Japan the first time. My first time visiting was in the '90s, and at that time I was just going to a different place around the world as my vacation. And that year I chose Japan, so I picked it, not knowing a person in the world, and got off the plane and felt like, where in the world am I? Because I couldn't read,
Hmm.
anything. I could, you go to Europe from the States, it's pretty easy to figure out where you are and to
Right.
make things out. But then to come here, I felt like I was a fish out of water. It was like everything I knew turned upside down, from, using a fork to using, chopsticks, to sitting down at a table where it's very low or a bed very low or doors very low. Everything was very different from what I experienced.
Yeah.
And that when you are put into a situation like that, it makes you change your view of life in the world. And that was just coming here to visit. And now that I live here, it's that times 1,000. And that also is part of your work. You start seeing that subtleness in your work. You start appreciating things that you take for granted before.
Sure. I know. I can imagine the kind of culture shock is quite abrupt when you go to Japan for the first time because, as you say, the language is so different. The food is unrecognizable in many ways, and yeah, it's something. Maybe when I come to Japan for the first time, I'll lean on people like yourself and others that I know in the area to guide me through that new cultural experience. But I do love it. The furthest east I've been is Malaysia. So time to get a little bit further out here. Got another question come in. Bruce Walker asks, any plan for a monograph or a career highlights reel book? Do you feel photography books are still relevant in the Insta world? That's a good comment.
A very good point. It's funny. I was just hearing a podcast talking about Ann Geddes and and how the work she was doing back when she was popular is not so popular today. And that a lot of that was books. I think on one level, books will always have, especially photography books, especially like fine art photography books, will have a place because the tangible is always special. Maybe not the way they used to, but I think they will always have a place. There are many fine art photography bookstores in Japan, many, um, and I love going to those places and touching a book and seeing the work. Those will always be special. It may be to a special audience, like to a collector, not to the masses, but hopefully they will always have a place.
Yeah, printing your photography is whether for a book, whether for your own wall, or whether as a gift for someone. Printing your work changes everything. I highly encourage anybody watching that has never been in a dark room, find one, and experience that. Putting a piece of plain white paper into basically a tray of clear liquid and seeing a photograph appear.
Yes.
And if it's your first one, probably then very quickly disappear because you've overexposed it. But that's that's an experience as well. That
I just
tan,
had prints made, just picked them up as a matter of fact.
yeah,
Had some pictures printed and framed. And I've got to tell you, in our world of looking at everything on a device, it does not do it justice
no,
at all. You print an image, number one, you see the real quality in an image where you don't get that on a device. You see, we're all used to seeing things on Instagram or whatever app you're using, and it looks a certain way, but you can't tell quality.
no.
When you see a print, you can tell the quality, and it's a very different experience.
Yeah, you can tell the quality, and then you'll very quickly realize the amount of time you're willing to give to a single image when you have it in your hand. When we see an image on a device, it's next one, next one, next one, next one. When
That's
you have a
true.
physical print, whether it be in a magazine, a coffee table book, a fine art book, or your own physical prints, it changes everything. But to go that extra step and print your own work,
Yes.
it's just it's magical. It really is
It
magical, and
really. Oh,
I get so disappointed when people haven't experienced that. Try and find it's not as easy now to find a darkroom to do your work, but if you reach out to some schools or colleges, certain local authorities or cities might have access to one through an arts program. Do it.
that's
It's
true.
just so much fun to do it, and it might change your life. You never know. We are really proud
It
that.
absolutely will.
Yeah, we're proud that through SmugMug and Flickr, people have great access to print their work, to sell their work as well, obviously through our platforms. But it will change your life, and maybe you want to do your own book. That would be that would
Definitely,
be awesome.
definitely. I'm making a personal book for a friend right now, and I'm putting pictures in there, and I'm going to print the book to send to this friend, because there is nothing like seeing pictures, like seeing it printed is another experience altogether. There's nothing like that.
Yeah, well, we just have to look behind you to see how much you love printing your stuff. It's
I
proudly,
do. I
proudly,
really do.
proudly hanging behind you. And there's amazing opportunities now in print. The way that you can exhibit work, the way that you can hang work and print it. There's some great opportunities. So go do it. I would highly encourage that.
It will only get better.
Absolutely. So we know you've got an exhibition going on at the moment, Black Art Matters in Switzerland. You've got Fluid opening in Kyoto in September.
Yes.
Obviously, we're in a very different place than we expected to be at the start of the year. But what else is on the pipeline for Matthew? What else are you working on?
Well, my goal is to take fluid everywhere. Of course, we're in a different world right now. Normally, Kyoto is a very busy place for a lot of tourists. A lot of collectors go to this one museum. A lot of very prestigious collectors and curators go to this museum. Right now, it's a different place, so I'm not sure what it's going to be like. Even in Tokyo, numbers have been going up, and hopefully things will not change between now and September, but they could.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a very fluid situation. I've got to figure out what's going to happen and go from there. But my goal is to take fluid and make it a much bigger place, show all over the world. So that's been a big part of what I'm working on, and everything around fluid. It's actually a layered approach to this project. So it will be taking a lot of my time for quite a while.
Well, that's the focus then. As I say, we're itching to see it now. Can't wait to see what comes in September when you release it. Before we finish up, I just want to encourage everybody to hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell icon. That way you'll be notified whenever we release another episode here on SmugMug Live. We're typically going out twice a week. Had some great guests on here. You can also see the whole back catalogue of all the episodes we've done here with some amazing guests over the week. Matthew, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. I've been really looking forward to having this conversation. It's been too long since we had a good conversation. So thank you for doing it. And thank you for staying up so late.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. This is time when I'm normally, talking to people back in the States
Yeah.
or up editing, and our lives are all different now. We're not going and traveling the way we were, so I end up doing a lot of work around this time of night anyway.
Yeah.
Experimenting with color, experimenting with lights, testing. Oh, speaking of which, I'll give your audience a gift.
Wow.
Um, we were all at home for months on end,
Yep.
and I was doing a lot of testing with my lights and color, and I made something at first just for me, but I started giving it away. So I want to give anybody who's here in the audience this gift. If you go to smartphotofilters.com, there'll be a free gift you can download, and this is a guide in terms of working with color uh, filters. So the way I came up we talked about color filters being like color correction,
Yep.
like your CTO gels, your CTB gels, all those we call those filters, and then all the color effects we call color effects gels. So I have a guide to help you to see exactly what color correction looks like in an image.
Right.
Um, and I spent, because we had all this time, I was doing this for me, so I put together this whole gift, this little guide to show you exactly what a quarter CTO looks like, what a half CTO looks
Right.
like, what a full CTO looks like, and then all of the other color correction filters, and that's in the guide.
Oh, that's great. I mean, we hear it so often. Add half a CTO to that light, and a lot of people nowadays maybe don't know, just how
Have no
that'll
idea what that looks
cool
like.
cool down the image or whatever. So or warm it up. So that's awesome. I will add that link in the show description so that people
Perfect,
can do that.
perfect.
So I'll get that link from you and add it to the description in the channel. That's great. So you've been taking lots of selfies then doing that project.
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I think I did more self portraits in the last 4 months than I've ever done in my career.
Yeah.
But it's been fun. Like on my birthday, which happened during lockdown, I photographed myself. I put on a tux and took pictures of myself, and that would be the picture I remember from COVID for my birthday
There you
for
go.
2020.
Well, happy belated birthday. I'm glad you have a nice image to remind you about it. But listen, thank you so much for giving us the time today. I really appreciate it. It's already tomorrow for you in
Yes,
Tokyo.
yes.
For me, headquarters is about to wake up in the West Coast in San Francisco. So we shall wrap up just now. Matthew, again, thank you. Look after yourself. Good luck with both Black Art Matters and with Fluid. So
Thank
excited
you.
to see Fluid. I really can't tell you. So I'll maybe reach out once that's live and we can talk a little bit more about it. But for now, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Wherever you are in the world watching this, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Stay safe, be kind, look after yourselves, and we'll see you back here on SmugMug Live next week. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.